Okay, so this is how to add a placket to your sleeve vent. I'm just going to show you how to draft the actual piece that you're going to attach. So you just start with a line across the bottom. Then you take your sleeve pattern piece and measure the length of the vent opening, including the seam allowance. So it's 3 3/4. Now draw that line perpendicular to the first line. And we're going to add stitching lines. So we're going to add 1/4 inch on either side and a line right across the top. So this is going to form your stitching line. So it's a lot like making a besom pocket where you stitch around the outside and then you cut up through and into the corners and you flip it like inside out and it'll give you a nice clean rectangle. So the next part is to add a seam allowance. So just measure up from the top of this stitching line, 5/8 of an inch or whatever your seam allowance is going to be. Draw a line across the top. Next step is to add the amount that we're going to need for this inside like bound edge. So it's a 1/2 inch on either side. So measuring from this side of the stitching line, we're going to add a total of 1 inch. Alright. Next we're going to add the amount that we're going to need for the actual placket. So it's 1 inch on the outside and 1 inch on the inside. And it's going to go up past this seam allowance line because it stands up past the opening. So we're going to add from this stitching line now, we're going to measure 1 inch for the inside of the placket. And this line can go up past the seam allowance line. And we're going to add another inch for the outside of the placket. So here we have the edge of the opening, the top of the opening, and that's where that line is going to be. So we have the top of the opening and then the sleeve placket stands above it. So it's already got 5/8 of an inch above it, but we want to give ourselves a little bit of extra room. So I'm going to add another 1/4 of an inch or so. Then I find the center. And we're going to add the triangle. Just draw it in whatever angle you like. Okay, so the last step is just to add a little bit of an allowance on all the outside edges so that when we top stitch the placket down, it's going to have the edge folded under so it's all tidy. So we're going to give ourselves 1/4 of an inch around the outsides. Because this edge, we've already accounted for the seam allowance and it's going to be sewn into your cuff. And this edge, we've already added seam allowance. We don't need to add anything up top, but we do need it on this little, like the side of the placket here. So we're going to add 1/4 of an inch and along the triangle, the top. So that's it. I'm going to just draw in heavier lines so you can see where you cut out the piece. So that's the shape that you need for your piece. And then the only lines that you have to transfer when you're actually cutting out in your fabric are these stitching lines. And that's it.